A very good noon to all of you. I welcome you to BYJU'S Exam Prep. I'm Nikita, and today we are going to continue with our RC toolkit, and we will discuss what to do in an RC, how to do it, what not to do in an RC passage for CAT and all the other MBA exams. Right? Good noon, Varun. How are you? So I hope, yes, your preparation is in full gear. I am also hoping that a lot of you took the All India mock that happened recently. You've now seen your results, you've analyzed your mocks, right? The video attempts of each and every question are also available, so do check that out, right? And as you know, the last lab to NMAT 2022 is going on, so do attend this. One VRC session has already happened, a grammar session. Today, we are going to talk about parajumbles because parajumbles do appear in NMAT in the language skills section, as they call it. Right? So, 4 questions from parajumbles came last year. And of course, you want to maximize your score here, right? You don't want to leave out on MCQ parajumbles at least. There are choices also. So, we'll discuss this today at 3 p.m. as to how to maximize your score in parajumbles. We'll look at different parajumble types. Okay, so do attend this series. It's happening. It's already started. It will be happening till the 3rd of October and at 3 p.m. every day on our YouTube channel. Good noon, Apurva. Hi, Mohit. Hello, Pragya. Good afternoon, Sangha. Hi, Maitri. Good noon, Videep. All right. So, let us talk about RC passages. Instead of, let's say, do's, I thought to talk about the hows, right? How to do something. So, I thought that what is the first thing that I do whenever I, let's say, begin a mock test or whenever I begin a particular exam also, a particular test also. So, for instance, in CAT, the moment I begin my exam, the moment I begin a CAT mock, my first goal is to not to start with such an RC passage that appears to be difficult in language or unfamiliar in genre. That is my first goal. I am not trying to give a meticulous difficulty ranking to all the RCs. No, I don't have that kind of time. Instead, what I'm trying to do is to save myself from attempting the, let's say, most difficult RC passage of the lot. What is most difficult for me? So, how can I do it? A lot of advice that that is popular in this regard is that look at the questions. If there are more of direct questions, no, attempt that RC. If there are more of inference questions, leave that RC, as in attempt it later on. But I don't agree with this advice. Why? Because sometimes, even if it's an inference question, it all depends on the kind of options that you have. In case your options are easy, even an inference question can be easy for you. In case the topic is familiar to you, in case the genre is of your comfort level, the language is not difficult, then even an inference question can appear easy to you. Okay, you can actually attempt it easily. Moreover, when will you actually realize the difficulty level of a question? You don't realize it just by reading the question stem. No. You realize it when you read the options, when you solve it. Before that, you cannot gauge the difficulty level of a question. So please don't go by this criterion that you start reading the question stems before to judge whether to attempt an RC passage or not. Okay, it does not help. Rather, what I do is I read some sentences. Okay, so usually some sentences of the opening paragraph or the opening sentences of various paragraphs, and then I decide, okay, this appears familiar also, I have read some articles on this, and yes, the language is also not very difficult. I actually timed myself for you, okay, in order to tell you how much time this exercise actually takes. So I went through all the 4 RC passages like this in a mock, and it took me 27 seconds to actually prioritize my RCs, in which I had decided all the priority order of all the 4, not just one, all the 4. So I'm not asking you to in fact go for all the 4 also. Just that please beware, don't start with an RC passage that is difficult for you in language or that is unfamiliar for you in genre. That is my advice to you. Okay. All right. Good noon to those who've just joined. Kavya, please don't be nervous. That doesn't serve any purpose. It doesn't serve us. See, the amount of energy that you will spend in staying nervous will be the same as the amount of energy that you can spend on working on the areas that you feel you are weak in. On, let's say, taking mocks, about which we are very hesitant. Okay, so the amount of energy is the same, right? So why not spend it there? Because there is a possibility that we might reap rich rewards, but here there is no such possibility. So please don't be nervous, please don't panic, please don't be sad. These things do not serve us. Okay, all right. So this is my first piece of advice to you, something that helps me tremendously, to not begin with an RC passage where I know I might face difficulties right in the beginning and I might end up wasting time because of it. Okay, because time is precious. Okay, now a corollary of this actually is, should we read the questions first? Should we read the RC first? What should we do? So you tell me, what should we do? Wage theory passage was at which number in your to-do list? Wage theory. I took this All India mock on 9th itself. So let me just check this passage. I hope you're talking about the All India mock only. So let me just quickly check and let you know. Meanwhile, you tell me, what should I do? Should I read the questions first? Should I read the passage first? What should I do? Yes. Hmm. It depends on the exam. Okay, there is no, again, see, the good solutions that you will get in life will rarely be one size fits all solutions. Okay, because the good solutions for anything, any problem out there that an individual faces are also individual and customized in nature, right? So here also, should I read the questions first? I'll tell you from my experience, what I have experienced in CAT. What I have realized is that reading the question stems first. First of all, you should never read the options first without having read the RC passage. That's my first suggestion to you. Unless, let's say, it's a vocabulary question, outright vocabulary question, for instance, in an exam such as CMAT or MHCT, where it's an outright vocabulary or grammar question. Then yes, you can read the options also. But in general, for your exams such as CAT, IFT, ZAT, SNAP, and MAT, okay, never read the options before having read the passage. So what do? You read the question stems. For me, reading the question stems in CAT is not extremely fruitful. I'm not saying it does not help at all, but it's not extremely fruitful. Why? Because I encounter questions such as what is the central idea of the passage? So here the question stem does not help me in terms of taking some keywords that I have to keep in mind when I read the passage. Or what can be inferred from the passage. Okay, which of the following strengthens the central argument of the author? So when you have questions of a broader general nature, reading them first won't be of much use. Whereas when they are of a specific nature, from a specific area, from a specific paragraph, talking about a specific thing, then it will be useful. So for me personally in CAT, it hasn't proven to be very useful. That's why I don't do it. Okay. Whereas in an exam like IIFT, where my aim itself is to hunt for more direct questions, is to attempt more and more direct questions to maximize my score, and where I do get a fair number of direct questions. In CAT, out of the 4 questions from an RC passage, usually not more than one is going to be direct. Okay, whereas in IIFT, in your RC passages, you will get 50% direct questions. You can open your previous year papers and check for yourself. Okay, at least 50% direct questions are going to be present. So there, I do this because anyway, I am trying to save my time. I might not read complete passages. I might just skim through them. Okay, so reading the question stems, knowing what specific keywords to hunt for helps me there. Okay, so in IIFT, I practice this. In SNAP, I practice this. In NMAT, I don't have this choice. So NMAT is out of question, right? So I do this according to the exam, whether I read the questions first or not. My first focus, see, I have read a lot about the challenges that educators face, right? So one primary challenge across various levels of education that educators faces that their students are not able to interpret questions correctly. That's the biggest challenge that a lot of educators face with their students. So instead of focusing on this, what first, your focus should be that when you read the question stem, give it your 100% attention. When you read the options, give it your 100% attention. I'll give you an example. Uh, See this. This happened in a mock, okay, in a recent mock only. The option said that it is not an insignificant factor. It is not an insignificant factor. Now, not an insignificant factor means the examiner is just trying to trick you and in a very circuitous way trying to tell you it is a significant factor, right? But a lot of students did not read this correctly. Either they skipped the not or they skipped this in and therefore did not consider this option correct. So my suggestion is read the questions carefully, whether you read them before, whether you read them afterwards, that you can decide for yourself. Okay. All right. Let's look at your comments in the chat box. Uh, Question, then passage as per my preference. Absolutely, Apurva. So what works for you, whatever maximizes your score, you have to do that. Ultimate aim is that, right? Good. Sometimes you go through questions, Subramaniam. Okay, good. Passage first in exams like CAT. Good, Mohit. I agree with you there. Okay. Kavya says passage first. Then Varun says mostly when I take mocks, I find some of the RCs based on common topics like Russia-Ukraine wars. So passages based on global crisis can come absolutely. Passages based on global affairs, international affairs, they have come in the past. Okay, you open your previous 5-year papers, you will find passages taken from the New York Times. You will find them taken from the Guardian, talking about international issues, global issues. Their nature, in fact. Okay, so I think we analyzed the RC passages in one of the sessions, previous year analysis, this session. There I showed you that in your past 5-6 years, your RC passages have talked about international issues. They have been written by international writers. The writing style, therefore, is international. Okay, and they've been transdisciplinary in nature, interdisciplinary in nature. So, for instance, if I talk about the Russia-Ukraine war, it has a historical perspective to it. It has a political perspective to it. It also has a socio-economic perspective to it. So this is interdisciplinary in nature. It doesn't just cover one genre, right? So hope this is clear. So Ayushi, I'll tell you as per the previous year. Okay, instead of telling it as per me. So in CAT 2021 at a score of 45, okay, at a score of 45 out of 72, you got a 99%. Okay, so this is what is required, right? This means 15 net correct. Net correct means when you do not have any negative score. 15 questions net correct. This is what it means. All right. Okay. I read some questions just to type. To know the type in 8 to 10 seconds. Okay, read some questions, all right, and then read the answer. Gaurav, if it's helping you, continue with it. Okay, as I told you, the good solutions in life are not one size fits all. So whatever is helping you to maximize your accuracy and save your time, please do it. Okay, you evolve your own strategy, right? Okay. Now, the next question that comes, and why I have included this, because we aren't just talking about CAT today, we are talking about other exams also, particularly NMAT, right? Particularly, we are also talking about IIFT. See, right after CAT, you will be facing IIFT. Okay, so in these exams, sometimes, for instance, if there are two RC passages in NMAT, which is what happened last year, in my slot at least, there were two RC passages. To one of the RC passages, I was able to do complete justice. Okay, in my slot, they came towards the end. So to one RC passage, I gave complete justice in the sense that I was able to read the passage, I was able to attempt all the questions also. But the other last RC passage, which was also the last set of questions that I was facing, I realized that I did not have the kind of time to read it thoroughly and then to attempt the questions. So what did I do? I skimmed through the RC passage and then I selectively focused on the direct questions. For the indirect questions, I narrowed down to two options and then made a guess. For the indirect questions, this is what I did because I did not have the kind of time to analyze those two options very closely. So it's important to have the skill of skimming because it will help you in some of your non-CAT exams. So how do I skim? I read the opening paragraph completely always. This is my policy. Okay. I'm not saying that it will contain the main idea. I'm not giving you that assurance. हमेशा उसमें main idea होगा. That will be wrong on my part to say. But it will help you to dive into the passage. Okay, to get into the groove of the passage, as we say. It will give you some idea at least of, if not the main idea, but some idea at least of what the passage is probably going to talk about. So this I always read carefully. Opening sentences of various paragraphs I read, and a lot of times they give me an idea of what the paragraph is about, what the paragraph is going to talk about. So I just need to have those markers that, okay, this para talks about this thing. So that when I have a question from that particular area, I can go back to that paragraph and then I can probably read it more carefully. So I read the opening sentences of various paragraphs. Closing paragraph, it depends. Sometimes I read it completely. Sometimes I just focus on the opening closing sentences. Okay. So actually when I read the opening sentence of the closing paragraph, I get an idea whether something important has been said here or not. Okay. If yes, then I read it completely. If not, then I just read the opening and the closing sentence. This is my approach to skimming. I never straight away attempt questions of any RC passage without doing at least this, even if I'm in a hurry, even if I'm short of time. Okay, all right. Then can you please make some videos regarding IFTs? Definitely, we are going to have this in this month itself. So yesterday only I had a session on ZAT VALR, where to prepare from, how to prepare. Okay, we discussed all of that. Then in the coming days also we'll have ZAT sessions, and when IFT comes nearer, we'll have IFT sessions also, right? So don't worry about it. Right now we are having more of NMAT sessions because NMAT window is about to open, right? That's fine. Otherwise, we're going to have sessions on all the entrance tests out there. Okay. So now coming to the next important part, which I'm going to demonstrate through an RC passage, because I feel that instead of my telling you this very theoretically that this is how you should eliminate, let's find it out for ourselves how to eliminate through an RC passage. This RC passage has mixed questions. I am telling you this in advance so that you don't form unnecessary, you don't have any unnecessary biases towards it, because sometimes students automatically assume passage difficulty hoga. Sometimes they assume if the language is easy, passage easy hi hoga. But the language just ensures that it's a smooth ride for you and you don't waste time there. The questions, some of them may demand your time, some of them may save your time, right? So let's have a look. I hope you've been finding value in the session. If yes, then please go and press the like button. So this is your passage. TISNET does have RCs. TISNET has RCs, Varun. Okay. So look at this. This is your passage, just one paragraph on this slide. The moment you finish reading it, let me know. Okay, I'll move to the next slide. All right. Okay. All right. Moving to the next slide. All right. Stultifying is something that stifles, something that is, rigid and therefore stifles growth. Done. Okay. All right. Done. Okay. Others? All right. So let's have a look at the first question now. See, it was not a very difficult read. Yes, a very day-to-day language only. This has been taken from a New York Times article. Okay, so let's have a look at the questions now. In the author's view, cities promote human creativity for all of the following reasons, except. So one of them is not the reason mentioned in the passage. We have to mark that. First, they contain spaces that enable people to meet and share new ideas. They expose people to different and novel ideas because they are home to varied groups of people. They provide the financial and institutional networks that enable ideas to become reality. They provide access to cultural activities that promote new and creative ways of thinking. I will go back in this question because I remember where I read this. Okay, where was it written that for what reasons cities promote creativity? Okay, so this is that slide. Read the first paragraph, you'll have your answer. With their diverse populations, dense social networks, and public spaces where people can meet spontaneously and serendipitously by accident. A fortunate accident is serendipity. Okay, they spark and catalyze new ideas. With their infrastructure for finance, organization, and trade, they allow those ideas to be swiftly actualized, to be swiftly realized. Right? So, with this, tell me what should be the answer. Yes, it is a previous year RC passage. This is from CAT 2017, slot 2. Okay. So I got a lot of threes before this. Pragya says 4. Anushka says 1. Sia 4. All right. So I've got 3 fours. Okay, good, good. 4 fours. Now see, so this is how our answer can change once we go back and read the passage. When you hadn't read the passage, you felt that okay, finance is something that probably has not been the focus. Okay, so and you felt that the passage was not really focused on money or economic things as such. It might have talked about a socio-economic divide, but it was not focused on finance. So that was your general understanding. But this is a very specific idea-based question. So always go back in such questions and check once. And once you check it, you realize that yes, 4 has really not been discussed. Cultural activities. We have talked about people meeting. We have talked about their, diverse populations, varied groups of people, right? And that's why we are exposed to new ideas. Then we have talked about finance and infrastructure also. That the finance and infrastructure ensures that these ideas are realized also. So these 3 have been discussed. 4 has not really been discussed. That is our answer. Good. Those who realize this later on, good. Okay. Question 2. The author uses ironic in the third paragraph to point out that. So in such a case, I will now go back to the third paragraph and I will see why has the author used the word ironic, right? So let's have a look. Third paragraph. Here I don't even need to hunt a lot. It's given to me that it's in the third paragraph. As for what staunches creativity, what is stifling it, what is preventing it from happening in a way, as for what staunches creativity, that's easy, if ironic. So the author finds this to be ironic. It's the very institutions that we build to manage, exploit, and perpetuate the fruits of creativity. Our big bureaucracies, and sad to say, too many of our schools. So this is what the author finds ironic. Let's see what the answer should be. Ironic, okay, what is the meaning of irony? When what you expect versus what the reality is, there is a stark contrast between the two. When there is a stark contrast between expectation and reality, sometimes they are completely the opposites of each other. That situation is an ironic situation. Okay, for instance, a student staying very near his or her school but always being late for classes. That is an ironic situation. Okay, now, so I've got 2, 4. All right. Yes, absolutely. Mohit, I also read this today itself. Taliban has banned PUBG and TikTok in Afghanistan, saying that they promote violence. So that is ironic, isn't it? Okay. Ayushi says 2, Gaurav says 2. All right, all right. Absolutely correct. So, this is the irony. We don't expect such institutions. No, they were created to promote creativity and they themselves are stifling it. They themselves are actually hindering it, right? So, that is the irony here, right? Um, Another irony that I read about democratically elected government stifling democracy. See, the government was democratically elected. A democratically elected government stifling democracy. That again would be an ironic situation. Okay, so 2 is the answer here. Absolutely correct. 4, this says that they are the outcome of successful cities. So fine, bureaucracies and institutions exist in successful cities. What is ironic about it? Did we not expect them to exist? If we did not expect them to exist, then they came to be, then it would be ironic. But that's not the point in our passage. Okay? All right. Question 3. The central idea of this passage is that, remember, for a main idea question, you can't go back and reread the entire passage. So, read the passage carefully in the first go itself, expecting that you may have to answer a central idea or main idea question. Also, eliminate. Elimination becomes very, very important, particularly in such passage level questions. So this is a passage level question, central idea of the entire passage. So eliminate and tell me what the answer should be. We'll go back to it once we attempt this. Okay, so let's attempt question 3 once. Let's see what you say. Pragya says 2. Okay. Subramanyam 2. Varun 3. Okay. Mohit 3. All right. Maitri 2. Okay. So let's, because see, we cannot go back and reread the entire passage, but at least we can look at the skeleton or the map of the passage in a way. So the passage begins by talking about creativity. Okay. And the passage then raises an important question. See, questions raised in the passage are important. When you are reading also, no, pay attention to the questions. What fosters creativity? The author says, more than anything else, the presence of other creative people. So the big myth the author is trying to bust here is that creativity is the province, is the preserve, the confined area of great individual geniuses. That creativity is the province of great individual geniuses. In fact, creativity is a social process. So how is it a social process? So the author says that, see, in cities, when people meet each other, when they have dense social networks, that fosters creativity. So that shows how creativity is a social process. Similarly, what can actually stifle or staunch creativity? Again, other people, these bureaucracies, these schools, other institutions. So ultimately, both these paragraphs are telling me that creativity is indeed a social process. And that is how cities are able to facilitate it, and that is how institutions are able to stifle it. Had it not been a social process, institutions would not have been able to do anything. Schools and bureaucracies would not have been able to do anything, right? Then again, we actually give an evidence of this, that how, because it is a social process, social institutions like schools can stifle it, right? Because it is a social process, again, leaders, people and institutions can actually block it out. Had it not been a social process, कैसे block out करते हो? If it was something that was inherent in every individual, then they would not have been able to block it out, isn't it? Then, in fact, it is also subject to the contours, the general boundaries of the great socio-economic divide. It is so social in nature. See, that it is also affected by this socio-economic divide. It is affected by inequalities in the society. So only social processes would be affected by it, right? So my point here is, why am I trying to show you this, is that the main point of this passage is not just cities. The main point of this passage is to show that creativity is a social process, and in that context the author talks about cities, bureaucracies, schools, leaders, institutions that can facilitate or block out creativity, right? And how, because it is a social process, it is subject to the socio-economic divide as well. So with this understanding, now what will you say? Our answer is, it is option, come on, quick. Option One, absolutely correct. I didn't want to say it myself. I wanted it to come from you. Social interaction is necessary to nurture creativity. Why is three not the answer? Because three is a close option. Okay. So when we narrow down, as students, you should narrow down to one and three only. Two and four can be eliminated easily. I'll show you. See, three is not the answer because this is narrow in nature. It is discussed in the last two paragraphs. It is discussed in the last two paragraphs. The socio-economic divide. However, this is not the main point of this passage. The main point of this passage is that the author wants us to show that creativity is fostered by social processes, stifled by social processes, and is therefore subject to socio-economic divides like various social processes. Right? So, this is narrow in nature. That's why it is eliminated. See, this question has all the classic traps that we tell students can be present in a main idea question. Okay, it has all those classic traps. What are those? You can actually remember it like this. Bay. Okay. Broad, alien, extreme. In fact, sorry, the N is also applicable here. Narrow. Bane. Broad, alien, narrow, and extreme. So this was narrow. That's why it was eliminated. Then creativity and ideas are gradually declining in all societies. First of all, this all should make you alert. Okay, this all should make you alert. Have we discussed all societies? Okay, one point. Secondly, doesn't it go against what is stated in my last paragraph? Its flourishing is all around us. Creativity itself is not in danger. Its flourishing is all around us in science and tech, arts and culture, in a rapidly revitalizing cities. So that option goes against this line. It is distorted. Okay, it is distorted. It is in fact false as per my RC passage. Okay, then if I look at 4, more people should work in jobs. More people should work in jobs. See, the moment you see words like should, must, have to, need to, etc., basically anything that is in the nature of an advice or a prediction, you should question yourself, is this prediction, is this advice present in my RC? Has the author said this, that more people should work in jobs that engage their creative faculties? The author has just described the present situation, that presently 66% of our population is in jobs that do not engage their creative faculties. One third is in jobs that engage their mind, engage their creative faculties. So, should wala advice aaya hi nahi. This is going beyond the passage. It goes beyond the passage. B can be for beyond also. Okay, so this is going beyond. This is narrow. This is distorted. So in that sense, you can call it extreme. All. Okay. So in that sense, yes, you can call it. I think instead of extreme, I should write distorted as well here. Right. Alien was not present here. No option was alien as such. All the options were related to what we have discussed. First, social interaction is necessary to nurture creativity. Yes, this was something that that most of the paragraphs of the passage were covering. Most of the paras were talking about this. Hence A. Okay. All right. Good, 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 good. 3 is a subpart. Absolutely correct, Gaurav. I thought 1 or 2. 2 could be eliminated because 2 is against the passage. Yes, it is extreme also. Correct, Gaurav. Okay. All right, Mohit. You don't have to tell her or him or them, right? Varun, negative statement. Okay. Then one in starting appeared to be generic. I agree. One appears to be, in fact, one appears to be narrow when you begin reading this. That is why I said eliminate. One is actually not the perfect answer. If you ask me, I can give a better, I can articulate the central idea of this passage better. One is not covering everything that should have been covered as the main idea, right? However, when we attempt these questions, what is our goal? To find the best out of the lot. It is the best out of the lot. That is there, right? So Pragya, that's because See, a lot of students feel that in verbal ability, no, there is no one correct answer, but that's a myth. In verbal ability, also the options are framed in such a way. See, the examiner also keeps in mind these classic traps and makes your options accordingly, keeping in mind these traps. So there is one correct answer. But unlike, let's say, numbers, words have this capability of confusing us because sometimes we assign different meanings to words, whereas our author of the passage has assigned different meanings to them. So that is why once I explain them from the author's perspective, they seem to appear to be obvious to you, but when you are doing it, they don't. Right? So that is because of words out there. However, the options, when they are framed from the perspective that there is one correct answer, three incorrect ones. Okay. Uh, in one of you, I think Varun mentioned this, that in question 2, 3 was also a close option. The larger the creative population in a city, the more likely it is to be stifled. It here probably means creativity. The more likely creativity is to be stifled. So while it is in the nature of an irony, it is not the irony that is being discussed in the third paragraph. While I agree that this is an ironical situation, that there is a city that has a lot of creative population and yet creativity is being stifled there. By itself, it's an irony, but it is not the irony that my third paragraph is talking about. Hope this is clear. Okay. All right. Coming to our next question then, question 4. Also, one of you asked me about the wage theory passage. I just searched, just scanned through the All India mock. I did not find any wage theory passage there. So which passage are you talking about? You can tell me in the chat box. Okay. Coming to question 4. The 1968 study that has been cited in the passage is used here to show that. Okay, so you can straight away go to the study, you can read the options, it's up to you. Okay, whichever works for you. So if I were in your place, I would probably have gone back and read what the study said, unless it were a very big study. If it were a very big study, then I would first read the options. Right. So this is the study here. What does this show? Read the paragraph. Okay, and in case you remember the context of this, nothing like it. In what context are we talking about it? In this context, that creativity is disruptive, schools and organizations are regimented, standardized, and stultifying. Okay, in this context, we mentioned this study. And then we said by the time we are adults, our creativity has been wrung out of us. It has been taken out of us. Okay. So with this in mind, now read and tell me what the answer should be. Okay, so understood. Uh, Mohit, your question, I'll answer this. Let's just complete question 4. I'll answer this. 2, 3, 1. Okay, I've got 1, 2, and 3, all of them. As they get older, children usually learn to be more creative. Who has marked 1? Let me just see. I hope it is for a previous question. We are showing that they become less creative. So 1 is false as per the study. Eliminated. Schooling today does not encourage creative thinking in children. Okay, see, I showed you the context for a specific reason. We were talking about schools and organizations, right? So this is a strong candidate. Let's go for the next one. The more children learn, the less creative they become. Okay. The more they learn, uh, am I talking about their learning in general? When I in my passage, when I mention this study, am I talking about their learning in general, or the fact that when they go to schools and various such organizations, they are so regimented? See this. What staunches creativity? The very institutions that we build to perpetuate creativity. Sad to say, too many of our schools. Sad to say, too many of our schools. Creativity is disruptive. Schools and organizations, they are regimented, standardized, and stultifying. So, this guy is an education expert, right? He conducted this study, and what did he find? That as they grew older, they became less creative. As they grew older, they became less creative. Now, this bit is clear to me from here. What is the reason that as they became older, they grew less creative? Because of the institutions that they went to. I'm trying to relate it to institutions, no? So कौन से institutions हैं? Bureaucracy में तो नहीं गए थे वो. They didn't go to various bureaucratic departments. They went to schools. So the purpose of this study is to show us that schooling also is not encouraging creativity. Even though these children may, I mean, I'm assuming that a lot of them must have been in schools, right? Yet their creativity declined. So institutions are not encouraging creativity, rather they are stifling it. That is what this study was trying to tell us. It was not three. Three is more general. Yes, three does not specify where are they learning from, what kind of learning it is. We learn so many things at our home also. We learn a lot of etiquettes at our home, manners, behavior, right, values. So this is broad. This does not mention schools, it does not mention institutions, which is a major point of this study. So, whenever you get such a question, so and so example is given to show that, or so and so study, as we mentioned, to show that, you have to give me the why of it. Okay, you don't have to give me the what of it. कि study क्या कह रही है, वो study क्यों cite हुई है, आपको मुझे ये बताना है. Why has this study been cited? Because the author wants to make this point that institutions are stifling creativity. Okay, hence two. Keep this in mind. This works for all these questions where we say that why has this been cited? Why has this example been given? This approach works for all those questions. Tech is not the point at all. This is just alien. Okay. All right. Perfect. Perfect. So Mohit, that passage that you're talking about, economics wala na, the genius of law is economics, that one. I made it my second passage. Okay. Why? Because I am comfortable with business and economics RC passages. So my first passage was this one. The greatest threat to peace. Which country is the greatest threat to peace in the world today? This is the first one that I attempted. Then because I'm comfortable with business and economics, I've made that my second one. In the hindsight, now that I have the benefit of hindsight, if you ask me, the ideal position for it would have been third, because the passage on hairs and the rituals related to them, that was pretty easy. The questions there were pretty easy. So with the hindsight benefit, I can say it should have been third. I made it my second one because I'm comfortable with business and economics passages, right? So this would be the answer to your question. Now, one more question to go, one more. Last question for the day. Yes. So tell me, the author's conclusions about the most creative cities in the US are based on his assumption that. So paragraph says, first of all, go back, right? See where does he mention this and what all assumptions can be there in that statement. Let's see most creative cities in the most creative cities in the US, para 6, just a second. Yes, here. So according to my own estimates, roughly a third of us across the US and perhaps as much as half of us in our most creative cities are able to do work which engages our creative faculties to some extent, whether as artists, musicians, writers, techies, innovators, entrepreneurs, doctors, lawyers, journalists, or educators. Those of us who work with our minds. Okay, so this is the sentence that I am discussing. Read it thoroughly. Read it once more. Now let's go. You have to see what assumption has the author made in this sentence. Yes. Varun says 3. Is this an assumption? What is an assumption? So see, here you need to know what an assumption is. So in case you have studied critical reasoning, you would know this. Assumption is what is the author's belief that is necessary to make this statement. The belief of the author that is necessary to make this statement. So is this a necessary belief that only artists, musicians and so on should be valued in a society? Only them should be valued. Has the author assumed this? The author has given these as examples of people who use their minds, people who engage their creative faculties. So only makes it extreme. No, the author has not made any such extreme assumption that nobody apart from them should be valued. Okay. 2. More than half. No, no, no. It says as much as half the population. As much as half the population in our most creative cities. That means 50%. Okay. Now, more than half of the population works in non-creative jobs. This is something that is mentioned in the next sentence. But this is not something that is true of the most creative cities. As much as half in the most creative cities works in creative jobs. That means the other 50% in creative cities works in non-creative jobs. In general, yes, 66% of the population, as per the author, the other 66% in general in the US is engaged in non-creative jobs. But इस सेंटेंस में ये assumption नहीं है. This is not an assumption of the author, first of all, and it's not a part of this sentence. So, people who work with their hands are probably not doing creative work. Yes, this is the assumption that has been made. Okay. Now, how can I say that this is an assumption of the author? Because what is the author saying? That as that 1/3 of us and as much as half of us in the most creative cities are able to engage our creative faculties to some extent. Those of us who work with our minds. That means the author is assuming that those of us who work with our minds engage our creative faculties, and those of us who do not work with our minds do not engage our creative faculties. So the assumption of the author, to be very, very precise here, is those of us who do not work with our minds are not engaging our creative faculties or do not engage our creative faculties. This is the assumption made by the author, right? And that is captured only through option 1. Okay, it is captured only through option 1, not through any other option. 4 says, most cities ignore or waste the creativity of low-wage workers. The author has not said this in this sentence. Most cities. Most creative cities and most cities, they're two very different things. The most creative city versus most cities. Right? I hope you get it. उसमें most creative की बात हुई है, number of cities की बात नहीं. Right? So, 1 is the answer here. How can we assume the not part? See, because, okay. See this. Those of us who work with our minds, they engage. Okay. So that's because of the next sentence also. If I look at the context, then I can. If I look at the context, then I can. See, that leaves a group. So which group is the author leaving? That leaves a group that I term the other 66% who toil. Toil is usually used for hard manual work. Who toil in low wage rote and rotten jobs. low wage, rote and rotten jobs. Okay, so from the context, we can say that this is an assumption. From the context, I understand that this is not a perfect option. Okay, the perfect option is that the author has assumed that mind is related to creative faculties. Engaging our mind is related to engaging our creative faculties. This is the assumption. Okay, from this, I am stretching this and saying this, that perhaps the author thinks that those of us who do not work with our minds are not engaging our creative faculties. And how do I gauge this? That perhaps the author thinks this because he is leaving out this other group. He is leaving out this other group. Right? So that is why one is the answer. I agree that, the moment I also saw this, no, hands, I felt ye to baat hui nahi hai. This sentence does not talk about working with hands. So how can this be an assumption? But again, when I realized that 2 and 3 are worse, okay, and fourth talks about most cities, which is not the topic of discussion here. The topic of discussion is the most creative cities. So I eliminated these, and therefore I realized that okay, probably this is what the examiner wanted to say. Assumption ye hai that those who engage their minds are engaging their creative faculties. Right? Hope this helps. Just a second, just a second. How you picked only the important lines and not the last two lines. So Mohit, I picked up the last two lines eventually because of the fact that I wanted to show you how the not part is something that I can gauge, right? Gaurav, is it clear how I have eliminated four? The most creative cities do not have to be in a minority. The most creative cities do not have to be a minority of cities. So we cannot infer anything about most cities. Okay, this is about the proportion of cities. This is about the degree of their creativity. The two concepts are different. Hope this is clear. Yes, this was a good question. Fifth was a tricky question. So I told you know that the questions are a mixed bag. So the main idea question and this assumption question, they were tricky questions in this, right? So hope this is clear to you how to eliminate. Elimination becomes very, very important, particularly when the ideal answer choice may not be present in the question, right? So this was the case with the main idea question and this assumption question. My last advice to you would be that see, we saw here that two of the questions were challenging. So in the exam, if you feel that you are stuck between two close options and you're just not able to assign even a slightly higher probability to one of them, then please skip the question for the time being and proceed. Don't waste time by being stuck on a question, right? That means if you are unable to assign a higher probability to any of the options out of the two, even after spending, let's say, a considerable 40-50 seconds, that means this question is difficult for you. Don't waste any further time. Similarly, don't waste so much time in RCs that you're not left with time for VA. And some of you who attempt VA first, don't again spend about 20 minutes on VA itself, such that you do not have time for RCs. So please don't waste your time. Have a healthy sense of time right from the beginning. Okay. So if you have on an average 7.5 minutes per RC, ensure that you maintain this per RC. 8 minutes हो गया चलता है, but 11 minutes नहीं होना चाहिए. You get it? So maintain a healthy broad sense of time. If let's say you are on question 4 right now of this RC, it appears difficult to you, you have already spent 7 minutes, okay, and you are just not able to decide, then just skip it for the time being and proceed to the next RC. All right. Don't forget to mark the questions that carry no negative marking, basically the type in the answer questions. Just type something there. In the odd sentence out question, just type one number. In the sequence one, type a sequence. Okay. And ultimately, don't lose your calm. Okay. Keep calm. The exam may not, turn out to be as you had practiced for, okay. For instance, the level of passages can be higher on the D-Day, but you just have to navigate through it. If it's difficult for everybody, and vice versa and I mean, same is the case when it is easy, right? So I hope this session helped you in realizing how to attempt some things and what not to do in the exam. We will keep meeting for more such sessions, right? I'll see you tomorrow at 12 and today itself I'll see you at 3 p.m. again. Okay, for NMAT Parajumbles. So see you today again, and This is our CAT 2023 comprehensive program. We've launched this. You can enroll now, right? You get a lot of stuff here, as you can see. And yes, I hope you enjoyed the session. If yes, please press the like button. In first RC 8 to 9 minutes, second 7 to 8. Okay. Gaurav, if this is working for you, good, good. Just ensure that you don't compromise on accuracy in the third and fourth RC. Okay? All right then. Yes, to stay connected, these are the platforms that you can follow us on. Welcome. Bye. Inference. Okay. RC inference you're talking about, Ayushi? All right. I'll talk to my team about this. Okay. All right then. Welcome. Bye. See you.